With all that's happening in the world lately, my thoughts were that I should put great effort into a garden this year. After a trip to the market to see a lot of empty shelves, and having a so-so garden last year, I decided to step it up a notch. YouTube is a great place to pick up many ideas. I watched my share of good and bad tips and tricks of gardening. Raised beds seem to be a good place to start. Trying to keep the cost down, I'm going with a 5.5 inch high raised bed. What some people don't realize, filling a 12 inch high raised bed can be quite expensive. Raised beds are very simple. I just screw them together with deck screws. I add a 45-degree corner support to the inside bottoms. To me, a garden should meet a few guidelines. Number 1, a place where you want certain plants to grow. Number 2, all other places where you do not want anything to grow. And 3, most of all, I think a garden should look good. The new pressure-treated lumber is garden safe. They no longer use arsenic in treating the lumber. I would not use untreated lumber. I wouldn't want to change this in a few years because they're rotted. I removed the turf from inside the raised beds and rotor-tilled the soil and removed any rocks. The soil below is not bad, it's just a little cold and wet. The water table is quite high here. I'm using a 16-foot cattle panel from Tractor Supply. I'm creating an arbor between the two beds. I screwed the frame and zip tie to metal posts for support. The 3 40-inch by 10-foot beds used almost 2 square yards of a 50-50 compost topsoil double screen mix. Two of the beds I'm using black plastic. This will not only prevent weeds, it will also warm the soil so I can get an early start. I got a really good deal on natural untreated wood chips from a sawmill. More than 3 square yards for only $20. I know I need a fence. I wouldn't want to go through all this work and have some critters clean me out. Just the other morning there were 3 deer admiring my empty garden. There were also rabbits, raccoons, woodchucks, just to name a few. I looked at many fences. Some are made to keep out rabbits, but they're only 24 inches tall. The 4-foot high fences, 2x2 wire mesh, I've seen rabbits run right through that. Chicken wire never looks straight, so I chose hardware cloth. It's 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch galvanized wire mesh. At the time of this video, a 4-foot by 100-foot roll was almost $200. Pulled the wire to the fence, I took pressure-treated 2x4s and ripped them in half. I screwed each section together with deck screws. When I dig the holes, I use a fence section to position the next pole. The poles are set in 24 inches deep and packed with rock and dirt. I don't need cement for my application. I want this fence to be modular and I could always expand on it. The wire fence is then stapled onto the frames with galvanized staples. The Wire hangs down about 6 inches on the bottom for 2 reasons. One, so I could level the fence without worrying about the space at the bottom. And 2, the remaining wire will be buried to prevent animals from trying to dig under the fence. I've heard that a deer could jump a 4-foot-high fence easily. One trick was to use 8-foot-high poles and run clear fishing line in 6-inch-high increments up to the top of the poles. This will confuse the deer because they can't see it and they don't know how high it goes. The garden is quite a distance from the house. Years ago, when my father had a garden down here, we all dug him a well as a surprise. I have a pump, I just need to run power underground, and also the hose to the garden so it won't interfere with the lawnmower. Someday I will have drip irrigation, but for now I will water it by hand. Now, one last thing to complete my garden fence is the gate. I'm using 1x6 pressure-treated decking, ripped in half, using pocket screws and exterior glue to make 2 frames with alternating joints. Once the wire mesh is stapled to one of the frames, then they both get screwed together to make one strong gate. I hope you enjoyed this garden build. In part 2, I will be planting this 2020 garden with a few unique ideas. If you would like to see what's next, please subscribe to my channel. Please stay safe. Together, but 6 feet apart, we will get through these tough times.